Well, it's that time of the week, and we always appreciate setting aside this time for the mayor of Kansas City. Quinton Lucas is on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. He is back from Baltimore. He is hard at work, and he's joining us on KCMO. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Good morning. It's great to be with you. I'm doing well. Chiefs are headed back to the Super Bowl. Kansas City is happy. Obviously, there's nothing to complain about.
Except for, the pothole complaints are starting to pick up. So what's the plan on the potholes?
It is a seasonal issue. I mean, I think everybody who's listening in KCMO radio country would recognize that less than 2 weeks ago it was about -5 degrees in Kansas City. Some of those days being highs below zero. That sort of freeze and thaw cycle, particularly this roughly 60-degree weather change we've had in the course of a few weeks, leads to changed road conditions. You can download the My KCMO app or call 311. That's how we get these fixed. We have crews out. These are the same crews that were doing snow plowing. These are the same crews that have been working hard all winter, and we're getting caught up pretty quickly. I will note, Kansas City's roads are distinct from our interstates through the city. So if you're on I-29, 35, 40, or 35, something like that, you do need to call MoDOT. A lot of the bigger tire blowouts I have seen have gone from those because, of course, you're going a higher speed. But we're always looking to get caught up. Potholes are a fact of life here in this part of the country, but we are certainly trying to make sure they're all filled quickly.
All right. So that now the ramps, are those MoDOT or are those you, the city?
The ramps are MoDOT.
Okay.
So the ramps are MoDOT, except for unique situations. And I have also noticed that often there are issues on some of our ramps as well. So we'll make sure that we continue to work on all of that. I want everybody to be safe on the roads, and so we're looking to make sure it all gets addressed.
Yes, and it is certainly, as you noted, the weather has not made it easy, but now they're starting to pop up. So last week was obviously a big Thursday. We talked about it on the show. You guys passed this source of income ordinance, this ban on basically saying no matter how you pay for your rent in Kansas City, you can't be discriminated against based on that. I was reading through the ordinance a little bit here over the weekend, and I want to clarify and ask you something here where it says, while a person may examine and consider a criminal background check, credit history, or rental history in reviewing an application for rental housing, the person shall review and consider additional information, which is what you and I have talked about, basically looking at the holistic approach of the person. However, it does say here that you can reject somebody for past evictions, for credit challenges, for any convictions, violent or sexual nature. But it says it doesn't have a timeline on it. So it's like, what is the black and white of this? When can you reject somebody for their criminal history as a renter? Like, how do we analyze that as a landlord potentially?
Well, it was my view all along that, of course, this is not a sky is falling type of ordinance. You have the ability to try to make sure your tenants, your building are safe. But in terms of when can you, I think it is actually more in how you do it. I think at almost any point you can actually look at history. Of course, contract law, landlord-tenant law in Missouri would govern kind of fundamentally the eviction process itself. I think what this ordinance says, though, is that you need to look at a broad-based context. I really think a way a violation of this ordinance is done is if you put out, assuming anyone still has a newspaper or goes to the pitch or something, an ad that says, "We are renting here. No one with any criminal record, no one who is a housing voucher recipient, and all of those need apply." I think that is the clearest type of violation, whereas it becomes a little grayer from there. If you are someone who says, I still will run a background check, you have, let's say 15 convictions for felony drug dealing. That is interesting. Is there any context as to why? Were they a long time ago? Were they 20 years ago? I think that's the sort of context that we're asking you to evaluate, rather than just saying whole cloth, you as a class of person can't actually rent.
Well, that's compelling and interesting, because that sounds to me like this ordinance, which, a lot of people were cheering in town. We know some of the groups who were. It kind of sounds to me like this thing may not be the boogeyman some perceived it to be, and it may not have a lot of teeth.
I think it does. I think that it does do an important step of, like every anti-discrimination law, right? Every anti-discrimination law said you can't discriminate based on something, but you don't have to rent to someone. right? So I'm African American, right? You're white American, but nonetheless, right? We can't be discriminated against. We walk up and they say, hey, we're not allowing people who look like you. However, there could be any number of reasons they don't rent to you, and I won't speculate as to why. But nonetheless, it's just saying you can't discriminate based on someone's membership in some group. If there is some individualistic reason, if there's something there, so if it's type of offense, if it's recency of offense, all of that, absolutely you don't have to rent to someone. We never were saying someone who just got out of jail yesterday for sexual assault is guaranteed a right to live next door to, a whole bunch of women or something in some building. I think what we are instead saying is the class of person who has been arrested can't be banned. And so, a lot of people use any type of law passing for any number of reasons. What I think is that we're saying discrimination on its face is something that we don't allow, but you continue to get to look into somebody's record.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Lucas is on KCMO. Now, on a similar note, I saw this, Channel 41 had this headline here the other day. Amid housing crisis, first permit issued in months to build new home in Kansas City. I know when you joined us for an event last summer, we had some builders who were talking about how difficult it is to build right now in Kansas City. And I know, there's a part of you that is a free market economy, capitalist kind of guy. And if we increase supply, demand and prices come down. So how do we make it faster and easier to get these builders to want to build in Kansas City? Because we've heard the complaints about permits and costs and everything else.
I think that there are a few different things that are going on. Today at City Council, there will be a discussion on this very issue as it relates to how do we try to make more efficient the permitting process in Kansas City. I think we continue to do the work. Some of it is reorganization on the departmental level at City Hall. More of it is actually just, I think, letting people know that this is something that's going to be key in how we do our business better in Kansas City long term. I agree with the folks who came to the last event that this is going to be something that's very important, that's big, and I think it's something we care about. And so, the next time we have politics in a pint, although I'm really tempted to go to the Bill Eigel politics in a pint, we agree with each other on lots of things. I hope that, the developers who would show up would say that we've seen improvement in Kansas City over the years.
Mm-hmm. You agree with Bill Eigel on what exactly?
That we like our families. I think that may be it.
Okay, all right.
We like our families. And I think we both enjoy living in Missouri. I think, although we both have very serious critiques about this state, and frankly, probably critiques about some of the same people who are in charge.
Yeah, that's probably true. On the issue of in the latest around the Royals, we have hit the month of February. That means that by the end of this month, this team, 4 weeks from today, it's a leap year, so they get one extra day, will have to announce, or it claims they'll announce, where they want to be. It seems like this star building site is getting more attention. I wonder if that's why this process has taken a little longer. Where is the city at right now on this negotiation and this decision?
Well, if the city is allowing the Royals to do the work that they need to do, we have recommended a number of times. They need to identify a site soon. They need to, I think, have real good faith negotiations in terms of what the plan ultimately will be. I understand, and I was one who supported giving the people of Jackson County the opportunity to vote on it in April. But I also think an important part of all of this is what's being done, what's the deal, what's it actually going to look like, rather than these things we see on the news every few days from our friend Tony Privatera, who tends to put a saucer on top of the entire crossroads with a Royals logo and says, hey, yeah, this is what the stadium's going to look like. I mean, we need more in connection with it. Until we have that more, I can't say that we're in any deep part of negotiations about what the future holds for Royal Stadium downtown.
Is the city, or are you personally, I guess, preferring one of the two in the sense that, and we've touched on this, that star location ties in nicely to Power and Light and the crossroads, whereas if the Royals go and build their own entertainment district, they're creating competition against a Power and Light district that already or remains subsidized by the taxpayer?
Look, you just laid out a completely logical point. That isn't to say that, I'm promising what will happen. This is not, well, in some ways it might be a decision that I have some role in, but I guess the Royals need to make a decision first. I do think that there are a lot of things about the Crossroads site that make sense. One, and I've heard some people and businesses nearby worried that the whole Crossroads will be raised. No, the Star Printing Press did a huge chunk of that in the mid-2000s. Right? They took out two gigantic city blocks for this futuristic printing press, which seems to be kind of an oxymoron if you think about it, which they've now vacated. And so you have two giant blocks. You have a parking lot next to it, and then you have one block with totally nude and a few other local establishments, some of which have now closed, like the Prime Bar that used to be a source of a lot of fights and shootings for Kansas City. So I think in some ways that makes sense. You're closer to the T-Mobile Center in the Power and Light District. There is the 670 bridge cap discussion nearby. I mean, look, I think I'd be lying to you if I didn't say there are a lot of synergies with where that would be in that space, perhaps as compared to almost anywhere else that's been talked about downtown. That doesn't mean there aren't other things to figure out, but look, I think wise voices may be saying, wait a minute, there's just a lot here that we can accomplish that ties into streetcar, power and light, big municipal investments in Kansas City over the last decades.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll be watching. I know today you guys are going to approve some monies for a potential Super Bowl parade in a couple of weeks, and there's always some drama around that. But is that number from the Star accurate? You're looking at about $1 million for a parade if there is one this year?
Well, I love it because almost no one tends to watch our meetings anymore in the modern days of press, but I'm glad that the Star caught up to it. Yes, I think that number is accurate, although certainly there, as has been noted, there are private contributions. And as the Star actually noted in its piece, there have been conversations, of course, with the Kansas City Police Department in advance. It was our view, and it's always our view, where these events are paid for or paid in substantial part by the city. Our contribution includes costs for public safety, so we don't have to get into a back and forth as a Board of Police Commissioners meeting again, which I think made everybody look bad in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was from last year. Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We'll talk to you next week. We appreciate the time, and have a good rest of the week.
Pete, are you going to Vegas? The big question. If not, we'll plan to talk about it next week.
Well, you opened up the door, but unless you got an extra seat for me there or something like that, which I know you're going, and who's paying? By the way, everyone's dying to know.
Well, the ratings will be gold for Pete live from the Strip.
Yes.
Right now I do plan to go, but I'll have more information on that. As always, it is not the taxpayers.
You got to find a underwriter.
And that sounds nefarious. I'm sure we'll find some way, and we'll get that information to you probably the same day Governor Parson does his press release.
Okay. All right. We'll look forward to that shot right next to Taylor. Will be Mayor Lucas and Governor Parson. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to more information on that next week.
We'll see you.
All right. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO, the mayor of Kansas City. Hey, he opened up the door. I was going to wait till next week to find out who's paying for the trip to Vegas. You know he's going, right? It's just a matter of who's paying.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wasn't going to go there today. I was going to save that. We had enough pothole conversations and housing conversations today. But he opened up the doors, so I just had to ask him who's underwriting the trip. Just like the Germany trip. Who's that company again?